Welcome back to the Sports Beat KC podcast. This is Jesse Newell, KU beat reporter for the Kansas City Star. I'm joined once again this week by CJ Moore of Bleacher Report. CJ, how is your week going?
Well, Jesse, I was going to say, the sun came up the day after Kansas lost, but I'm not really sure it has come up since then. I think we're just living in this gray world. I'm ready to get to Phoenix and see the actual sun.
Yeah, I think the most depressing part of this whole situation, CJ, honestly, from a personal standpoint, is I won't get to go one-on-one against you again in basketball like happened 10 years ago, because I very much was looking forward to that and seeing all the other scribes out there ball at the Final Four, and that's just not going to happen now.
Yeah, Jesse, I don't know if we actually went one-on-one. I think that would end poorly for you. But yeah, it would have been I was really looking forward to the possibility of having Kansas media down there, and particularly Mr. Jesse Newell, because, I consider him a friend, even though I'm kind of a jerk to him on this podcast. But yeah, it was going to be fun to have you down at the Final Four. I'm bummed about that.
Yeah, the jerk thing is mutual, and it's also a shtick. It's what we do on the podcast. But I will tell you, Kansas media, I likely would have been one of the worst ones there. Benton Smith, he's a taller guy. He'd have been able to ball. Matt Tate, not so much. Gary Bedore.
I used to play on Tate's team. He's all right. You stick him in the corner. He talks a lot a lot of trash.
I was going to say, the bigger thing with him is
I don't think you could have gotten, but you were about to go Bedore. I don't think you could when Bedore really got out there. I don't see that.
He's money from the corner. That's all I know. If you ask Aaron Miles, he will tell you Bedore is money from the corner. And with Tate's a good player, and he's better than me, I'll admit that, but he just tries this spinning behind-the-back pass. Like every pass, he just loves that pass, and it gets stolen about one every 3 times. If he just eliminated that from his game, tried to eliminate the flash, he'd be a good player, but he just can't eliminate the flash. That's the problem.
Oh, man. I used to play on his team when I was in college. They were called the Captains, I think. He didn't do any of that crap then, because he had some guys that were former college players, and they were just angry. And, if you screwed up, you heard about it. So all Tate basically did was stand in the corner and not screw up, because those dudes, they were mean if you messed up. They were intimidating guys. So that's all I've ever seen of him. I don't think I've seen really all his flair that he has maybe to offer.
That's good to know. I'll have to remember if I ever play pickup with him again just to be really mean to him so he doesn't turn it over. But, yeah, definitely a guy. He can play. He can play. Again, everybody's better than me. I know that for a fact. But let's talk about Kansas and Kansas hoops. I'm going to talk a little bit about the season finale for KU in the Elite Eight against Oregon. You guys brought it with the Twitter questions, so we'll get to those, and also a look ahead to 2017-2018, because it's never too early for that. It's never too early to look ahead and see what Kansas might have coming down the pipeline, and also going for a 14th consecutive Big 12 title, which would set the new record and be something that has not ever happened in college basketball history. But before we get to that, 74-60 CJ, KU loses to Oregon in the Elite Eight. I know you were there. I was there. Just general impressions, general thoughts about this game, and what you thought about KU, how they played.
Well, Jesse, I think this was about the worst-case scenario in every way for Kansas. And kind of to take you through a couple just general thoughts from the game. One, I think the game changed, obviously, a couple minutes in when Josh Jackson fouled Dylan Brooks, and I do think he fouled him. Him picking up his second foul there completely changed Kansas. And if we remember, the last time KU did not have Josh Jackson, they lost to TCU. So I think that team got really vulnerable really quick when you took away one of the important pieces. And that's why, I guess rightfully so, foul trouble and depth was kind of a concern for KU fans all season. What would happen if this guy gets in foul trouble, this guy gets in foul trouble? So we kind of saw, obviously they were a different team with Jackson. And then I thought Self made the right move to bring him back with I think it was about 8:30 left. I thought that was the right move. I'm not in the sit a guy with 2 fouls for the rest of the half camp. I think you have to bring him back. I think it's just too long to sit. I also am in the camp where the game is the game. Those minutes in the first half are just as important as the minutes in the second half, and you can't get them back. So I think you just play a guy and you trust him. But with Jackson, he came back in and he wasn't the same type of guy. Although at the same time, Jackson, that was kind of messed up in the head out there, was probably better than the alternative. And they really hung in there that first half. And then the game completely changed when Tyler Dorsey came down and very smartly went 2 for 1 and hit kind of 2 lucky threes there at the end of the half. I think if that's a 5-point game at halftime, the second half plays out in a very different way, and KU doesn't come out and is kind of playing. So, I mean, they came out in the second half and were a team that was like under a lot of stress and felt like they had to get it back really quickly. And they never really played like themselves throughout the course of that game. The fact that they were even there close with 6, to get it to 6 after squeeze 3 kind of spoke to the, I don't know, resiliency maybe of this team that they were even in that game and had a chance at that point.
Yeah, let's talk about Josh Jackson, because the foul trouble was there, but I thought the bigger issue wasn't the foul trouble, it's what you talked about. And it's funny how it seems to me like going throughout the course of the season, and it's almost like a futile exercise or like an exercise in misery, how KU fans try to predict what is going to haunt the team in March. You're like, what is going to be what takes this team down? And it's almost funny to listen to in January, February, because you think, man, how pessimistic or negative do you have to be to like try to squint and figure out what is going to be the downfall of this particular Kansas team? But there was a lot of talk throughout the year about Josh Jackson not keeping his composure. And, throughout the AAU circuit, he was impressed all these coaches because he was ultra competitive. He went after the ball the whole year. He was unselfish. He liked to be on KU's team. But there were those moments and those flashes, and you remember back to the Duke game, you remember some other games where he got technicals, whether they were deserved or not, where he just lost his cool. He lost his composure, and he basically was not helping KU past that point. Now, I had this conversation with Seren Petro of 810 yesterday, and he kind of got after me a little bit, said, look, in the final 5 or 10 minutes, Josh Jackson flashed. He got some offensive rebounds. He was playing really well. He was scoring. That's all true, but Oregon got more than 10 minutes out of Jordan Bell. Like, it got more than 10 minutes out of Tyler Dorsey, and it got more than 10 minutes out of Dylan Brooks. And so Josh Jackson, not only did the fouls hurt him, but him taking himself out of the game. He was screaming at Frank Mason. He was screaming at Landon Lucas to get rebounds. He was yelling at officials when he was still scoreless early in the second half, and you could tell he was not mentally into it. And I know I'm going to be more critical of him than you are with this, CJ, but he couldn't guard Dylan Brooks, and that was a big problem for Kansas, is that he was the most natural fit to guard him. And I went back and rewatched part of the game. There were 3 different times I wrote down just in the first half where he wasn't getting out far enough to defend him on the shot, and then there was another time he let Enos drive right by him, which was a crucial point at the end of the first half when KU got it to down 3. Josh Jackson was clapping his hands, trying to get the crowd fired up, and while he was doing that, Ennis went right around him on a drive, got an easy 2. That was before the 2 Tyler Dorsey threes. Mm-hmm. So again, I mean, it is kind of weird to think about like how a lot of KU fans might have wondered if Josh Jackson, if he got rattled a little bit, if that could be kind of the downfall of Kansas season. I'm not pinning this all on Josh Jackson, but again, my quick scout, the headline was KU needs a focused Josh Jackson against Oregon because of that match and because of how important he would be against an Oregon team that plays a lot like Iowa State. KU didn't get that, and that was a big factor in the game. Yeah,
he was, and we talked about repeatedly how I thought he was the most important piece to their defense all year.
Yep.
And when he was at his best defensively, they were at another level. When he wasn't, they could get average real quick. And I'm going to read to you I had to do this stock up, stock down thing for the top NBA prospects for what they did in the tournament. I'm going to read to you a quote. I kind of blended together a couple of different scouts' takes. And so here's one of them. He says, people are worried about the off-the-court stuff, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to affect him on the court. But he looked really frustrated against Oregon. He was jawing with guys. He's just letting the adversity get to him. And I think that hurt him. It reminds me a lot of the Draymond Green issue. It's a thing that makes him great, but it's also the thing that is the greatest concern. So, I think that kind of speaks to kind of that final game. And he, the play that sticks out in my mind is he thought he got his third in the first half for a rebound that he was fighting with Ennis. Mm-hmm. And he walked away and he tore out his jersey again. And his guys kind of ran up to him like, no, the foul's on Ennis, not you, And it was actually the right call. It should have been on Ennis. He thought it was on him because the whistle came late. It was a late whistle. If they would have blown the whistle on time, Jackson probably doesn't react like that because then Ennis ended up falling, on the floor right after, and so he thought it got called on him. But I thought what really affected him was, and this isn't necessarily him just being. He would let some things get to him sometimes too much, but this is also kind of a basketball thing. You get 2 fouls and it can change you how you play. And so from a defensive standpoint, maybe he wasn't as aggressive. And then offensively, I thought he was really tentative to drive in that first half where he needed to be attacking the basket. And one thing I didn't think Kansas did well enough in that game was Jordan Bell was controlling things so much. And if you could take away drives from Kansas, but they didn't take away drives, but they took away the effectiveness of the drives because he wiped everything out at the rim. And if he didn't wipe it out, he changed it enough where he could get his own rebound, or to get the rebound of the missed shot. And what you have to do against a shot blocker like that is you have to get it up over him and hope that your guy that he came off of, in this case, Landon Lucas, can get the footback. But Bell would change shots so much that they weren't able to get those putbacks. So what I thought KU needed to do was really drive it and start to get the defense in rotations to where eventually you can get a shot that Bell's not affecting. And they really didn't have the patient levels to do that. And they also needed Josh Jackson to be aggressive and be the one guy, because he was the one guy who could kind of go at him. And you saw that late, and they needed that more earlier on. But he was too scared to get that call on a charge in the first half, and that really hurt.
Yeah, it's crazy you talk about that. KU scared. It seemed like that there were some whispers from the Oregon locker room, or I guess just some talk from the Oregon beat writers that said that they knew Josh Jackson was coming around on that first play of the game because that's what KU
it's done every play.
Yeah, and so they basically said, hey, let him drive, and Jordan Bell's going to come up and block this shot and let everybody know that he's there. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And you could see KU tentative after that. It's crazy, though. I mean, all these KU fans, you watch this game and say, wow, Jordan Bell, he's an amazing guy. And I know he's on, the Draft Express lists and everything. But Oregon as a team, I believe I saw the stat, Oregon as a team had 7 blocked shots in the 3 NCAA tournament games coming in. And Jordan Bell has 8 against Kansas. I mean, what's going on here? You know what I mean? That's crazy.
It's a different type of team that they played, though, because Michigan shoots a lot of jumpers. So he didn't have as much influence there. And then let's see, who were their first 2 games against? They played Iona, right? Iona is another jump shooting team that doesn't have guys that really can drive it inside. And then let's see, the second round they played
Rhode Island,
which kind of has some guys that can drive it in there, but it's just Kansas is so reliant on drives and getting to the rim to where that was my concern going into the game. I mean, I don't know if we talked beforehand, Jesse, but Jordan Bell, I thought people were underestimating what kind of presence he could have, because if you take away KU's ability to get easy buckets around the rim, and that's how the team got easy buckets around the rim, was through driving. It wasn't through post touches. And when you have a shot blocker like that, it's kind of like what Anthony Davis was able to do back in the day, when Kansas tried to drive at him. He intimidates, and he was in their heads. And you have, Devontae Graham, that shot, I think, showed how much influence he had on the game when Devontae Graham goes in from about 4 to 5 feet and airballs it. He was definitely in their head. And what's tough in an NCAA tournament setting is, okay, in an NBA series, a Jordan Bell can take away everything in that first game, and then you're able to adjust in the second game.
Yep.
It's really, really hard to make that much of an adjustment inside one game, especially when you're playing from behind, and that's what makes the NCAA tournament so difficult, and why the best teams don't always win, because you can get in one particular matchup where you don't match up well, and it's hard to make the adjustment once you get down so much.
Well, and the thing I want to mention, you mentioned this earlier, but yeah, Frank Mason, I remember, had one where he drove in, drew the defense, threw a lob to Landon Lucas, and scored. But the other thing that's really protected Kansas throughout this whole year on those drives, you're talking about kind of the 4 game they play, the weave offense they run, is that when those guys have gotten inside and driven, Landon Lucas has always had his little butt screens, to kind of shield off the shot blockers. And again, this was so out of character again for Kansas, because Landon Lucas wasn't only not playing well and not getting rebounds, which was something that never happened basically the whole season, but he wasn't shielding off the one guy that he was there to shield off. You know what I mean? Usually when Frank Mason, I'd always kind of point this out in those games where, oh, hey, Frank Mason got this drive, but hey, you got to look at Landon Lucas because he shields his guy off really well and allows, 5'11" Frank Mason to make this layup in the lane, but he wasn't able to do it. Jordan Bell was just the whole game was a step faster than Landon Lucas, and I really thought Lucas would give Jordan Bell problems because Bell is not a physical player. I mean, some of KU guys got asked about physicality after the game. This was not physicality. This was athleticism.
This was quickness.
This was quickness and athleticism. So I thought Landon could give Jordan some problems because Jordan is not a physical player. But what ended up happening was just the whole game. And again, it could be nerves, could be his Landon's dad played for Oregon. Maybe there's extra pressure. He knows what playing at Kansas City is. He hasn't been to a Final Four. All those sorts of things. But just Landon was not himself. And again, that hurt KU. That really hurts KU because not only was Landon not scoring, but then Frank Mason, Devontae Graham, all those guys were getting their shots blocked frequently when Landon couldn't even seal off his own guy, which was allowing KU to score for so many games this season.
But at the same time, Oregon played kind of they played a lot of zone, and they just kind of put Bell right in front of the rim. So it's harder when he's not actually really guarding you to do those kind of, butt screens you're talking about and stuff like that. So, and plus Jordan Bell is so quick that, that's what makes Jordan Bell such an intriguing prospect is the way he can move at that size. I mean, he's just a unique player, and that's why, as a help defender, he's just such a great weapon. So, it was just kind of a tough matchup for them. And then the way Tyler Dorsey was shooting the ball when he gets involved with Brooks in ball screen situations, you can't let Dorsey get a look, and then you end up recovering on Brooks, and that's not how you want to play defense on Brooks, and that's how Josh Jackson got his second foul. So it was just kind of everything went wrong for Kansas, but if KU makes shots, they're right there with them, and they just didn't make shots.
Let me go ahead and say this, CJ, before we move on to the Twitter questions, because it is crazy. So, it feels like KU just got dominated in all aspects. You see 74-60. You just feel like KU just played awful, all those sorts of things. Okay, let me go over it. Offensive rebounding percentage for Oregon, 31%. You want to guess what it was for Kansas?
25.
31%. Okay?
Okay.
Turnover percentage for Oregon, 20%. You want to guess what it was for Kansas?
20%.
13%. Okay?
Oh.
Free throws for Oregon, 5 of 7. For Kansas, 13 of 17. Okay,
yeah.
So we go with those three stats, and you say
3-point shooting is a big difference.
So you go those three stats. Those three, the rebounding is exactly equal. It felt like Oregon dominated. It was basically exactly equal. Turnovers, KU, and turnovers have been a problem for KU in the tournament. KU has 8 turnovers. That's a great number for them, and Oregon actually had more than that. 2-point shooting, Oregon was better, but a lot of that was the shot blocking because Oregon blocked 8 shots. KU was only able to block 1. But again, both teams. Oregon comes to the game 38% from 3. KU comes into the game 41% from 3. Now, you have to give credit to Oregon for closing out. You have to give credit to Oregon for playing defense, even if you can't give them all credit. But 25 shots each. Oregon makes 11. KU makes 5. I mean, 6 times 3 is pretty easy math, CJ. I mean, if you take everything else into account and say both teams make 8 of 25 from 3, you're looking at a 4-point KU victory. So, again, I'm not making excuses for Kansas, and some of those threes late were forced up. I mean, KU was desperate trying to get those shots up. I'm not pretending like those are good shots, but this is, to me...
there were a good number of them that were fine shots, and they just didn't make them.
Semi-guarded threes now, CJ, the line's too close. Semi-guarded threes for Devontae Graham are a good shot for Kansas basketball team. And I think the bigger concern moving forward is, as often happens in these games, is that one game becomes a way bigger thing than maybe what it should be. And now Bill Self could look at this and say, well, here it was. I gave my guys freedom. I told them they could shoot it when they wanted to. They went 5 for 25 in the Elite Eight game, and KU lost this way again. It's time to go back to the old thing and what happened before, when really in reality this was KU's best offense in quite some time. Couldn't get out in transition, which is what they've done all season. Oregon athletic and did a good job of that. But it just kind of stinks, I think, because I mean, that's how the game goes. Like you said, if it was a 1-game sample out of a 7-game series, you come back the next game and maybe you shoot 11 for 25 and everything's okay.
It evens out.
But there's the danger there that Bill Self maybe swings back to the opposite direction because, once again, KU relied on 3-pointers and it didn't go well for them. And part of that is just kind of the luck of the draw and what happens in a 1-game sample. Yeah,
for sure. And, I mean, it's just hard. It's hard to win any game when you're 5 of 25 from 3, and at the same time they grab a rebound down 6, and man, they might have had a shot.
Who knows what happens?
who knows what happens there? But once Oregon got that rebound, and then I mean Tyler Dorsey was just a bad boy in that game. To be able to cross Vic up at the end of the shot clock right after that and hit that shot he hit, I mean that was ball game. And you have to you focus so much on Kansas, but you have to give it to Oregon. One, they had a really really good game plan. And two, their shot makers made shots, and they played a heck of a game. And they're also a really, really good team. Like, Oregon isn't a 3 seed. Oregon struggled a little bit the first month of the season when their best player was out because Dylan Brooks had a foot injury. And that's a team that probably is a 1 or 2 seed, maybe even a 1 seed. I was on with Carrington right before the Big, or I think the Friday of the Big 12 tournament. He asked me for 4 teams who I thought had the best shot to win the title. I said KU, North Carolina, Gonzaga, and Oregon. Like I thought pretty highly of Oregon then, and I thought pretty highly of them throughout the whole year. And if KU ends up, or if Oregon goes out this weekend and beats Carolina on Saturday, does that mean Carolina had a better season than Kansas because Carolina's in the Final Four, but they lost to the same team? No. KU probably had the better season. So, we put so much weight in getting to a Final Four, but sometimes it's just about who you play, and Oregon, was great on that day.
2 things. Those Dorsey 3 threes that you're talking about. I mean, you want to talk about Devontae Graham shooting semi-guarded ones. I mean, the Dorsey pull-up right before the half, the banked-in shot where Frank Mason closed out on him really well, and then the shot after the offensive rebound where the shot clock was running down and he put one up. 3 incredibly difficult shots. And again, give him credit. He made all of them. One of them was banked, but those are huge plays in the course of the game that swung the momentum. And for 2, I'm going to disagree with you here, CJ, because I'm sorry, KU was a 7-point favorite, and you're playing that game at home. I get it. Like, I'm the number one guy that will tell you, like, hey, crazy things happen, 1 game sample, don't rip Bill Self, all those sorts of things. But Oregon was a 7-point underdog in that game, and I'm not going to give them all the credit in the world and say they should have been a 1 seed, they should have been a 2 seed. KU got a break facing Oregon instead of Louisville. The arena was 95%.
I disagree. I disagree with you on that point. I'm with you on the road. Oregon's a better team than Louisville.
I definitely disagree with that, and the Vegas line would have told you that. But the thing is, again, 7-point favorite. You're playing in Kansas City. You can say matchups or whatever you want to say. If you're a 7-point favorite, you got to win the game. I mean, that's Bill Self knows that. Everybody knows that. KU fans understand that. Like, it was the closest thing to me since VCU to VCU for Kansas. I mean, the whole thing was set up for them to make the Final Four.
That's the one where I think you can be critical all you want. I think they blew the VCU thing, and they should have won the title that year. And now Self is almost like if they go and win the title in 2011 and then they lose that game the other day, there's probably way less chatter about it. And Bill Self can't win past the Elite Eight, blah 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 blah.
I'm just saying something's there, CJ. I mean, in the regular season, if KU's a 7-point favorite, it never loses by 14.
But not in this particular game. I understand where you're going with it, and I agree that there are games where they have played tight in the tournament. But that game the other day, I just don't think you can go there because, one, the kid their best player, their most talented player, Josh Jackson, gets 2 fouls coming in really early. That completely changes the game. And you played a team that had a dominant shot blocker. They just got outplayed against a really, really good team. Sometimes you play a really good team, and that's kind of why I wrote the column I wrote, because Oregon was really, really well prepared, and they have really, really good players too. And they've also had a ton of success the last 2 or 3 years, to where they were right on the doorstep last year to the Final Four as well. They were 1 seed last year, and they're better this year. So you lost to a really, really good team, and if they go out and win the title this weekend, maybe that kind of changes where you are with that argument.
Well, we'll see. Again, people will be listening to this, I'm sure, after that. I don't think Oregon's winning the title, and I don't think they're beating Carolina. But if you're KU, you can play a bad game and still beat Oregon. I mean, you're a 7-point favorite. That's my point. And so, again, I don't know what to make of it. I don't know.
Can you play a bad game against that Oregon team and still beat them? I don't know that you can. I think you have to play good to beat that team.
KU was a 7-point favorite, CJ. You can play bad and win by 2. You can play bad and win by 3. I mean, you have some margin of error. This wasn't KU playing North Carolina. It wasn't KU playing Gonzaga where it's a pick 'em game. Or even, I mean, you know me. I'm the first one to say last year against Villanova, I thought it just ended up being a bad draw for KU. You know, that was a 50-50 game, a great game towards the end. KU loses by 5. You know, one team makes more shots. Devontae has the foul trouble. Like, to me, that one, I was not critical at all about that one. And then Villanova showed they went out and won the title. I thought Villanova could go out and win the title. I don't think that's happening this year. Again, we'll see what happens with it, and we can move on to this talk about next year. But if you're a 7-point favorite at home,
we'll get there in a second.
It's tough.
How many games did Oregon lose this year with a healthy Dylan Brooks?
I don't know. I'm sure you're going to tell me 2 or 3 probably.
Yeah, they lost 3 games. They lost at UCLA, they lost at Colorado, and they lost to Arizona in the Pac-12 championship.
So they lost a bunch of road games, and then they faced Kansas on the road and won. Right?
They lost 2 road games. They lost at UCLA and at Colorado, which that Colorado trip is a weird one. I mean, it's going up in the altitude and stuff like that. So
I can go back on you, CJ. I mean, after Boucher went down, couldn't you have made the same argument that Oregon wasn't as good of a team as it was early in the season?
I think too much was made of Boucher. He was a nice player, but he came off the bench for a reason.
Well, it's obviously easy to say now that Oregon beat Kansas is in the Final Four. Again, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, and I'm the one who wants to say it's a small sample size. This is weird, but this is the 7th time out of that 2-5 for Bill Self that he's been favored in the Elite Eight game, and KU's 2-5. So it's something weird is going on, and I'm with you. I thought this was less Bill Self. Bill Self was less tight in this game than ever. Like, I marked down my notepad, and he was just saying over and over, "We're okay, guys. We're okay. You know, calm down, calm down." Like, this was the most cool, calm, relaxed Bill Self I can ever remember.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of, and maybe, look at a little bit, is that the day before in the press conference setting, I mentioned this on 810 too. He brought it up. He goes up to the podium. He was asked about it, and his 5 starters are sitting there next to him. And he was asked about the Elite Eight, and he said, "Oh yeah, this is the toughest game. This is where the pressure gets to be the most. This is where the shots just don't go in." I mean, and just kind of went on and on and on. And
where you probably just say, "Hey, it's any other game. It's a tournament. They're all tough."
Yeah, this is where you lie, Bill. I mean, this is where you just say, "Look, what's in the past is in the past." Yes, my teams have struggled in this game, but you know what? These 5 guys next to me, I know they're not going to struggle because I've seen them play all year. I've seen them be confident all year, and I guarantee you,
there's some bad dudes.
I guarantee you, there's some bad dudes, and we're going to come out as motivated and as fired up as any team you've ever seen play. And I have no question my guys are going to take over this game.
Well, I think Jordan Bell put some doubt in their heads.
I think he did too, but that's what I'm saying. If you're Bill Self, I wouldn't. Again, this is like micromanaging here. I'm talking about a question at a press conference before the game. So, but this is what happens. This is what happens when you're 2-5 in the Elite Eight. But
you overanalyze everything.
But I was surprised. I was surprised. I will say that.
Yeah. I mean, look at the stat. I tweeted out yesterday. I said most NCAA tourney wins since 2000. Royce in first with 54, Coach K in second with 44, Izzo 43, Self 42, and Cal 40. And that goes back to Self's last season at Tulsa. So, this isn't all at Kansas. I mean, the guys won in the NCAA tournament. The guys won it no matter when the games are played. He's won most of his games. I mean, it's just we put so much emphasis on getting into the Final Four, and I understand it, and on national titles. And I understand when you're at Kansas, like that's what the expectation is, and having high expectations is great. But to jump on the guy and call him a choker, I just don't see it as fair when he's 2 behind K since 2000 and wins in the tournament. I mean, all of these guys, it's hard. It's why there aren't that many guys that have more than one title. I mean, it's really, really hard to win a national championship in this single elimination tournament, and he's going to get one eventually. And I'll say this: the VCU one, that was bad. Like they should have beat VCU. That was a mess up. There's I won't give you any excuses for losing that VCU team. That stunk because they had that year. They really did have it kind of paved to win the title because you would have played Butler and then you would have played Connecticut. That was a down year. Kansas had the best team left in the field. But I don't know that they would have gone and won the national championship this year. Carolina's really good. Gonzaga's really good. So it wasn't like it was, easy path. But I understand the Kansas City point. I understand Vegas having you like the line like it was. But if Kansas doesn't blow out Purdue, that line's way smaller.
Well, and I put that in the quick scout. I picked KU by 3, so I didn't think it was going to be an easy game. But I agree with all your other points, and I'm definitely not calling him a joker. That's not it. My main point is it seems like something is there. It's almost with the stats, with him being a favorite on those games, it just seems like there's something there. And again, he's tried to figure it out. He's tried to adjust. He's tried to change his methods. He's tried lots of different things. So I feel for the guy. I really do. But Kansas, it seems like every single year has its worst offensive performance in its final game, and especially when it happens in the Elite Eight. So it's weird.
You're usually playing a pretty good team then.
You are usually playing a pretty good team then, but again, this is to be a 7-point favorite and lose by 14. That seems like a performance that's almost completely off the map. Let's get to some of these Twitter questions, CJ. I promised that we would do this, and there's lots of really, really good ones too. So let's get to these. From Payheed_08, with what you know today, who is the starting 5 next year? So let's start with that one. Starting 5 next year for Kansas basketball.
You fire them off first, Jesse.
Well, obviously a lot depends on whether Devontae Graham and Svi Mykhailiuk come back. The word has
Let's go with the definite. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but we can do this together. Let's go with the ones that are definitely going to be starters. Udoka, that's a given at the 5.
Malik Newman, Billy Preston.
That's a given at the 2. I don't know that I think it's probably Preston at the 4. But I could see a scenario where it's Carlton Bragg starting at the 4. I could also see a scenario where Carlton Bragg transfers out and never even gets that shot.
Yep, and then the other 2 seem to be pretty easy because if Devontae Graham comes back, from the word we've gotten, him and Svi are very close, good buddies. Probably both of them are either going to come back or leave together. But I would assume that Devontae Graham comes back. That's where I would lean with it right now. So if you've got that, then you fill out the rest of the lineup. So you got Devontae Graham, Malik Newman, Svi Mykhailiuk, Billy Preston, Udoka Azubuike, and then we can go ahead if that's what that's the lineup. Let's go ahead and go back to Bobby Norrell's question on Twitter, and he says, does KU go back to playing high-low and through its big men next year? What's a realistic expectation for Udoka as a rim protector, and is he a rim protector? So with Billy Preston at the 4, I think he's more, from the scouting reports I've gotten, he's more of a Josh Jackson type, kind of a stretch 4 sort of guy. So I think KU probably will kind of marry the 2 things together. Maybe not as much 4-guard lineup next year. They can kind of mix and match with the type of lineups they had, kind of like they did this year. But I would assume KU would start with that 4-guard look, continue the offense they've run, but maybe a little bit more 2-big look, depending on the big men that are available next year.
Yeah, I haven't seen Preston play, but I've talked to scouts about him. I would anticipate best case scenario he turns into kind of like a Marcus Morris type.
Okay.
So yeah, I do think you turn into a more, a little. You're going to see the high-low again next season. And if I'm Kansas, I study a lot of Gonzaga and how they use Shamik Karnowski, both defensively and offensively, particularly defensively, because he's a really, really effective defender, and there's kind of some similarities with how he's built. Udoka is not quite the mountain of a man that Karnowski is, but it's similar.
Yeah, and he could be a rim protector for KU next year. He showed flashes of that early, but also remember, Udoka is not a finished product, especially offensively, and there was a reason that KU's turnover percentage improved quite a bit once he was off the floor, because early on he still had a little bit of issue with that and kind of knowing where to go with the ball when passing. So he's not a finished product. I guess I'll just say that. He will help KU, and he would have helped KU at the end of this year, but very limited in college basketball experience or basketball experience in general. So I wouldn't assume he's going to step on the court and immediately just be great for Kansas on both ends. It's still going to take some development time there. Let's go with Jeffrey at JBE741. Did Frank just give KU the best season since Danny? Has anyone in the Williams or Self era had a better season?
Oh, man, this is a tough one because there's been some really, really good ones through the years. I always think the Marcus Morris in 11 season was really special. The Nick Collison and Drew Gooden years, their last years, each of them respectively, Gooden's junior year and then Collison's senior year, were both really, really good. And I think they got some Player of the Year awards for both those, didn't they?
Might have kind of touched on it, but nothing like Frank's hitting this year. Obviously.
Yeah, nothing like. I think Frank's might sweep it all. So when you just talk basically him comparing to the field, then yeah, probably the best since Manny. The other one I was going to throw out there was Rafe. Had some pretty incredible years his last 2 years. So those are all big men. So it's kind of hard to compare big men to guard. But as far as guards go, yeah, I can't think of a better one.
Yeah, I think the Rafe call is a good one. I can't remember anybody as dominant since maybe then. I mean, the other one that always pops to my mind is Thomas Robinson 2012, just because of the type of team that KU had, where it was basically the Tyshawn and Thomas show. And again, he ended up as an All-American on most lists, but behind Anthony Davis. But I mean, Anthony Davis, if there was an Anthony Davis this year, he might be Player of the Year too. So it might be a little bit unfair to compare Thomas to Anthony Davis when that was kind of a freak of a talent. But yeah, no, I think.
And Wayne's last year, his last 2 years were pretty darn good too. We at least have to mention him. It'd be unfair not to when you mention those other guys. So,
yeah, when you're going statistically, averaging, I think he almost averaged a double-double, didn't he? I'd have to go back but if he didn't, it was really, really close. But a scorer and rebounder as far as that goes. But I mean, I think I would have to say Frank's season was the best out of all those.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I mean, those big men were so good that I'm talking Rafe, Nick, and Drew. They were so good that I almost want to say they're about even. But I do think that Frank's going to sweep the National Player of the Year awards, or at least get close to it. And nobody's had anything like that since Danny. Although you told me Hershey Hawkins, get out of here with Hershey Hawkins.
Hershey Hawkins won 4.
He won. Him and Bradley got some of them. So that's a joke. They need to go back and redo that. But will remember Kansas was a 6 seed that year. So probably Danny got hurt a little bit by the lack of team success.
Hershey Hawkins won 4 of the National Player of the Year awards. Danny Manning won 3 that year. So actually, Frank's going to become the first consensus National Player of the Year that KU's had. Pretty crazy stuff.
Assuming he gets them, but I think he will.
Yeah, I think so too. From Kyle at Jayhawks Cards Fan 5, Self's current contract runs through 21. Is he due an extension soon, and how long do you think he coaches for? Thoughts, CJ?
Let's see. Extension. What are we in? 2017. Yeah, he'll probably maybe one more year. And they'll give him an extension. Maybe a lot of times they'll give guys extensions even if they don't even think they'll coach through the whole thing, just to have it out there. How old is Bill Self? 50.
He's
what?
20 years older than me, so he's 53.
53. Yeah, I mean, I could see him coaching another at least 10 years.
I think that's about right. I mean, he's always talking about he doesn't want to coach forever, but the guy is also super duper competitive. So I wouldn't rule out him kind of going maybe a little bit longer than he thinks right now. But Speaking of that, I don't know if it, like you said, there's 4 years left on the contract. No real reason to extend him now, but this would be a good time to extend it if you wanted to, because usually in these sort of contract things, it's good to give the coach the. Not that Bill Self necessarily needs it, but you reward a guy when not everyone is loving him. You know what I mean? Like Bill Self is taking some criticism right now. It can't be the best week for him. He's got to be disappointed and frustrated that this team didn't make the Final Four. But an act like that from Shea and Zinger or the KU administration, I think would be a positive move if they did want to go that way. Again, it's not necessary with 4 years left on his deal, but sometimes these sorts of things happen just to kind of throw all your support behind the coach that has done so much for the university in the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it and you look at that list I read off earlier, it's part of the reason people are so frustrated is, I mean, Kansas is, people who follow the team, they're spoiled. I mean, you have 2 of the best 5 coaches of the modern era. I'd say that list is probably your Mount Rushmore of the current era of college basketball. And you had 2 of the 5 as your coach over the last 30 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's unreal, and yeah, you only have 1 title out of there, and I understand the frustration there, but you had just an unbelievable. Nobody can touch Kansas basketball over those, that 28-year span or whatever it is in terms of regular season and postseason success combined, except for Duke and Carolina, but even, Kansas has even been more consistent than those teams in terms of just having high-level teams every single season. So
been to the tournament every year since the probation year in '89, and then also, Sam Mellinger wrote a great column about it in his Mellinger Minutes today. I encourage people to go check it out. But yeah, just the overall success that they've had and not had down years. I mean, Kentucky, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago in the NIT?
Yeah, NIT. Yeah. Carolina had an NIT too during Roy's time so far.
And Sam's main message is you take the good with the bad. But here's the other thing, if you're looking at Bill Self things as well, if they make it to 14 straight conference titles, that's never going to happen again, folks. I mean, this is something that will never, ever happen again. And so that's something you would look at and say, national championship happens every year, and people love those, obviously, but this is something that will stay in the record books for as long as there's an NCAA or college basketball or whatever it's called in the future. No one will ever match this again. So that's something else to look at with Bill Self and to realize kind of the historical significance of what's going on. All right, let's get to Ty Briggs. The Ty Briggs on here. Graham, Duvall, and Newman. KU better with Duvall and Newman or Graham and Newman? Thoughts?
Probably Graham and Newman, just because, I think experience is important in college basketball. Duvall, the thought on him is he's a really, really good slasher and super athletic, no jump shot. So, it kind of depends. What do you want? Do you want the guy that can slash, or do you want the guy that can hit the jumpers? Because I think if Devontae Graham does come back, I think what NBA people are going to tell him is he needs to improve finishing around the rim and showing he can get to the rim. So that's the one thing you want to see more out of him next year, because he didn't have a lot of finishes around the rim this year.
Yeah, and part of that I think was just kind of knowing his strengths, at least for this year. He didn't have to be a go-to scorer, but you're right. When he drove to a jump shot, and then otherwise he took the spot up threes, which he was really, really good at until the final game of the season. And sure enough, it's the same thing. Tyrell Reed goes 1 for 8 against VCU, or 1 for 9 from 3. Wayne Selden goes 0 for 6. Devontae Graham goes 0 for 6. I looked it up. Again, this is kind of fuzzy math here, but if you consider Devontae Graham came into the game at 40% three-point shooter, and he shot 6 of them, the math would say that there's a 0.4% chance that a guy like that would miss 6 3-pointers in a row. So just kind of the crazy things. I also looked it up. In the last 135 games out of the last 4 seasons, only 2 players have gone 0 for 6 or worse from three-point range in the last 4 seasons. Wayne Selden against Villanova, Devontae Graham against Oregon. The Elite Eight curse. It's just a real thing.
Digging that knife in, Jesse.
I'm telling you, it's a real thing. So let's get to a couple more here from TD1 Tribe KU. Self not going 5 guards earlier, leaving Jackson out there with too long with 2 fouls and passive plays. Any thoughts on that? KU was effective late when it went to Jackson at the 5, and that's something they did against Iowa State. Were you surprised that KU didn't go to that a little bit sooner to kind of try to match up with Oregon there?
That's kind of a thought I had throughout the game was maybe going super small. It's tough though, because you needed to find a way to get your guards just a little bit of time on the bench, especially Mason, and I don't think they ever did.
Nope.
But he looked like he tired out there in the second half. But it's also hard to go away from what you do most of the year right there. But yeah, I think it might not have been a bad move to try the 5 small, but you were chipping away with what you were doing, and you just weren't making shots. So who's to say you would have made shots with the 5 guards out there? So yeah, I don't know. It's easy to go back and nitpick now. The one thing I had issue with, I thought that they could have maybe done a little differently. I thought they set too many ball screens, especially when they had the back Casey Benson guard out there on the perimeter against guys. He's a guy that Michigan kind of figured out you could go at, and they were still setting ball screens on him. And when I'm a guard and I feel like I can get by a guy easily, I don't want a ball screen. Just get out of my way and let me take this guy. So I thought that kind of jumbled things up at times. They were maybe a little too over-reliant on the ball screens, and maybe that comes from they had so much success against Purdue doing that. So that was the only thing that kind of I looked at and was like, ooh, you're just crowding it up out there. But for the most part, I think he tried some different stuff, and they were able to chip back a little bit.
Yeah, and tell me if you agree with me or not, but this will be a question for Josh Jackson at the next level. I feel like he was more comfortable all year guarding up rather than guarding down, if that makes any sense. Like, KU put him at the 4, but like he didn't seem to. I mean, I know Joel Luala-Chul is not like the greatest offensive player ever, but I mean, he didn't seem too uncomfortable guarding a 7-footer. But like Dylan Brooks, it just or Deontay Burton, those sort of guard types, that really seemed to give him more trouble. The guys that could kind of drive and or shoot from the outside. So again, putting him on Jordan Bell and kind of matching up athleticism for athleticism seemed like a pretty smart move late for Kansas. And you mentioned earlier, it's just tough. It's tough in the teeth of a game to have all these things. You got to make these decisions quick, and you got to get this done. I mean, and maybe
Brooks is so physical that it's hard to put somebody else on him. So that's one reason maybe not for downsizing, because maybe it makes sense to have Jackson on Bell, but I don't know who else it makes sense to have on Brooks, because if you put a leaner guy like a Vic on Brooks, and he could just take him in the post. So that was also difficult. I mean, Oregon's just a really tough team to match up against, and what they do in similar ways that Kansas was a tough team to match up against.
But CJ, Jackson didn't guard Brooks most of the game because he couldn't guard him. They had Vic and Mason on him most of the game. So that was already going to be a matchup problem for Kansas because Jackson showed and proved he couldn't guard Brooks. Okay, you had to switch him off. And I'll tell you what, Frank Mason guarded his butt off against Dylan Brooks. I mean, he was in his face all those times. And Vic did an okay job. I mean, most of the points that Brooks got were against Jackson.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure every time Mason was on him, it was in a switch. You could go back and watch for sure, but I think it was on a switch out of a ball screen.
I don't think so. I think when Jackson struggled early, it was Mason on him. I remember tweeting about it. So, and again, he was giving up, what would that be, 8 inches and 35 pounds? I tweeted out something like that. But Mason was into it both ends. I mean, the one thing I saw that Mason did, if you go back and watch the film, about 3 or 4 times you could tell he was pressing because he gambled for offensive rebounds. And Oregon didn't get much in transition, but almost every single time he went for like one of those 50-50 or 40-60 balls for an offensive rebound. Oregon got it and had like a 2-on-1 the other way and scored almost every single time. So again, it's just kind of like
they were in desperation mode.
He could tell he needed to do a little bit more this game, and you start trying to do a little bit more than you're supposed to. And I'm not saying I blame him because Frank Mason was having to take over, but like it cost Kansas. You know what I mean? Like he couldn't get there in that instant, and he couldn't get the offensive rebound, and Oregon scored on the other end immediately. And some of those points were very important in the grand scheme of things. 2 more. Keith Smith, was Oregon the better team? Who would win in a best of 5?
I think that, man, I would maybe slide with Kansas. I think it's a toss up. But, Oregon's really, really good. If we're playing the game at the Sprint Center, maybe KU wins 3 out of 5. But I think it was a really, really close matchup. And, I don't think like that 7.5 line was fair. So I don't know that I think I would lean Kansas in a best of 5, but I think it's still kind of a toss up.
Kansas.
I know that's like the worst sports radio answer ever. You got to be definitive in whatever you say.
That was awful, CJ. Yeah, you're hedging big time. Come on, man. No, KU wins it for sure. Not close. KU is the better team.
It's close. That's
close. Not close. That's we can disagree. There's nothing wrong with that. We can disagree. KU not close, but I think I like KU a lot better in a best of 5 if they don't know that the Final Four is on the line. If that makes any sense. All right, last one, CJ, from Corey Beckman on here. A look at best and worst case scenarios for who leaves and who stays and what each means for the Big 12 run at 14. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think the best case scenario for KU, Devontae and Svi staying. Maybe add another post player through recruiting, but I think if KU gets Trevon Duval and loses Devontae and Svi, that takes a little bit of a hit. But otherwise, Devontae and Svi come back. I think they're the favorite to win the Big 12 title.
Yeah, I think so too. You know Josh Jackson?
Oh, shoot, I forgot all about him.
You forgot about him. Best case scenario, he stays too. No, I think that that's the case. And I also think that you could see them, even if those guys stay, you could see KU go out and get a couple guys, whether that's grad transfers or high school guys, or even maybe the JUCO. I believe they're in on a JUCO kid, right?
Yeah, they are. And the thing about it is, Bill Self is always best at getting these guys toward the end. I mean, pulling out like the Kevin Youngs of the world, graduate transfers, Tarek Black. It seems like KU always has somewhere to go to if they need a body, and a post player definitely seems like something that should be on their wish list.
And if they lose Svi and Graham, I think they'll definitely go out and get a grad transfer guard. Who knows who that is? You don't know who's going to be out there on the market. But they'll be in the market for a guard, and that's a pretty attractive place to go, right? So I think if that happens, you've seen Louisville do it a lot lately, go out and get a transfer or a grad transfer guard and have some success with it. I could see KU going that route.
Quick plug, CJ. What are you doing this week? What's coming out on Bleacher Report?
All right. I will be at the Final Four starting on Thursday. I will have some kind of story come out that night or Friday morning. I don't know what that is yet because I've got a story session or whatever you want to call it, a brainstorming session here in about 20 minutes. So I'll figure out then probably what I'm going to be writing on. But got plenty of stuff on the site that's gone up over the last week or so. Wrote a column about Bill Self if you want to go check that out from this weekend at the game. So plenty of material that'll be coming out. And Jesse, it's been fun doing this all season, and I'm sure we'll continue to keep the pods coming as the off season gets here and things kind of settle down a little bit. I feel like Jesse, bless his heart, is going to have to piece this together because there's been a radio call interruption, my dog interrupting the podcast, and then my dad randomly showing up to get my dog to babysit the dog while I'm gone. So it's been a pretty wild podcast. I don't know. And I think I went on some kind of rant about my dog going outside that hopefully Jesse doesn't put on this podcast because it was pretty X-rated.
I'm protecting you here, CJ. No problem. But I appreciate you having you on every single week. We'll probably take a couple-week hiatus here at least to let the college basketball season breathe and to let us breathe a little bit. But like I said, I appreciate you having you on every single week and the insights you brought. I thought that you are getting so much better at plugging your own stuff. That's what I'm here to help you with, CJ, is to plug what you do and make sure that everybody knows that that your stuff out there is the best stuff that they'll read. So thanks to CJ for taking the time to talk. And for Jesse, we're going to sign off for the Sports Beat KC podcast. Be sure to tune in for another episode later this month.